Star Wars 7 by 7 episode 2188. Today, let's update ourselves on Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7 by 7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So we haven't updated ourselves on The Mandalorian in a while after we had those flurries of casting rumors and, what the roles were for these different people between Timothy Olyphant and Michael Biehn and Rosario Dawson and all this other stuff. So yeah, it's been relatively quiet since then, but there have been little bits that have dribbled out here and there, and so I thought I would round those up here for you in case any of them happen to escape your attention. And funnily enough, the first thing to share with you is a casting thing that goes the other way. It's about somebody who had been rumored to appear in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, but turns out he will not be after all, and that is Bill Burr, who played the character Mayfeld. You remember him from episode 6 of Season 1, The Prisoner, where it was his crew that was working to break a guy out of a New Republic prisoner transport. He's the guy that had the guns that popped up over his shoulder and that extra firepower. Anyway, he had supposedly been in the plans for Season 2, but there was a recent interview with him and they were asking what he's involved in, what he has coming out next, and he only talked about The King of Staten Island and F is for Family, and that's it. He says he has nothing else in the pipeline. So allegedly, apparently, Season 2 of Mandalorian is not in the cards for Bill Burr and Mayfeld, and that's unfortunate, I have to say. I mean, on the one hand, sure, it's great that, they might explore a whole bunch of brand new stuff and particularly fantastic because, yeah, that's exciting in its own right, but Mayfeld was a pretty awesome character, and so I'm a little bummed that we won't be able to see him in Season 2. And there's somebody else who we will not see in Season 2, but whose work we will see in Season 2, and that's the work of a guy named Sam Hargrave. So Collider had a great exclusive about this. Hargrave directed a movie called Extraction on Netflix, which turned out to be a very popular, very well-received movie starring Chris Hemsworth, and it actually did so well that they've got a sequel in the works now. Well, Sam Hargrave has actually worked as the fight coordinator or the stunt coordinator or as a stuntman himself on a number of movies and a number of Marvel movies in specific, including 3 of the Avengers movies, 2 of the Captain America movies, Deadpool, on the Wolverine. There was one other one I was going to throw out at you, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's been involved with that. So yeah, he's done some, very interesting stuff. And the crew of The Mandalorian, the Lucasfilm folks, brought him in to be a second unit director, which means that he was directing stunt action on The Mandalorian Season 2. And there are a couple of great quotes from him in the Collider interview I wanted to share with you. He says that the team that was there did a great job in the first season and it was just all fun, but they wanted to build on that and bring a new perspective and take it to another level for the next season. So I was like, that sounds like a fun challenge. That's Sam Hargrave talking. And he also says that the way the story arcs is really cool, and so they've tried to have the action represent that and take it to the next level. But he also says that the balance you have to find and the truth you have to adhere to is the character you've developed. So if you have a character, and for this guy, meaning the Mandalorian, who's more of a gunslinger, a bit more of a brawler, it would be out of character for him to come into a scene and throw off a round off backwards double flip and do a crazy kick just because you can or because he has a helmet on. You have to remember to stay true to the character. So there you go, Sam Hargrave talking about the challenges and the excitement of ramping things up for Season 2 of The Mandalorian and still keeping it in tune with what The Mandalorian is and what we've already experienced. There's also a note that he mentions about, normally he's involved in post-production on these things, and he was actually in post-production for Extraction when they called him to work on this and check it out. But he is not involved in the final editing process, but he says he's very confident in what they were able to get on film when he was actually there. On film being an archaic word, of course. He was actually also talking about, and I'll link to the article on Collider, but he was talking about how, the way that they do this is very different in the filming, and it's the kind of stuff that was talked about in the Disney Gallery series for The Mandalorian about the volume and how crazy that is and all that stuff. So I'll link to the story in the show notes for this episode so you can check that out if you like. And the last bit of news comes as a surprise announcement. So I'm going to take you back to episode 5 of The Mandalorian, and if you'll recall, the Mandalorian walks into the cantina, yes, the same cantina that we saw in A New Hope, and there's an Eve 99 droid behind the bar. So the Mandalorian walks up to the droid and has this conversation.
Hey droid, I'm a hunter. I'm looking for some work.
Unfortunately, the Bounty Guild no longer operates from Tatooine.
I'm not looking for guild work.
I am afraid that does not improve your situation. At least by my calculation.
So there you go. Sounds like a pretty run-of-the-mill exchange, right? Well, here is the geeky crazy thing about that. The droid is voiced by none other than Mark Hamill. Yes, indeed, Luke Skywalker, who is also an accomplished voice artist. He is the one who did the voice of the droid bartender in The Mandalorian and recently revealed that he has had some kind of voice acting role in everything Star Wars made since the prequels. So that's very cool, very exciting to hear that he did something for The Mandalorian, and it does make you wonder whether there's something in the cards for him in Season 2. As a voice actor, of course, I mean, you know, technically speaking, Luke Skywalker is alive in this time of the timeline, so he could show up, but yeah, I think it's probably more likely that any appearance by Mark Hamill is going to be in a voice acting role. But hey, you know, you can dream, right? All right, so that is going to do it for our update on Season 2 of The Mandalorian, which is still on track for its October release. No specific date yet, but I'm sure it's going to be announced soon. Hey, I'll go out on a limb and say that we'll hear about it in August, about the same time that we would have heard about it when Star Wars Celebration Anaheim was supposed to happen. Fingers crossed. But for now, that's going to do it for this episode of the show. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2020 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.